So you want to lose weight. Maybe you're looking at Ozempic, but you're not sure if that's really gonna work long term. And if it does work, how much weight can you expect to lose? Well, let's talk about some studies which show you what actually works for long-term weight loss. In 2023, the New England Journal of Medicine published this article, which was titled Effects of Once-Weekly Semaglutide versus Placebo on Weight Loss in Adults with Overweight or Obesity. This study showed that people who were taking semaglutide weekly lost about 14.9% of their body weight over the course of 68 weeks. That may sound like a lot of weight loss, but when we look at the average person, the average starting weight of this group was 244 pounds. So even though it sounds like a lot, they lost on average 35 pounds over the course of these 68 weeks. But then again, when you take a step back and you look at 14.9% of body weight, that is a tremendous amount of weight loss to be expecting. And the thing is that people who are obese have an easier time losing weight than people who are overweight. And that ease because those who are more obese have a higher percentage of fat mass versus fat-free mass when you look at someone who is very, very thin, like a competitive bodybuilder, if they need to gain a few pounds. It's very hard for them to gain weight because most of their body is already lean mass, so that is why people who are overweight or obese have an easier time losing weight than people who are already very lean. Now, the good news is that when you stop taking semaglutide, the weight loss doesn't go away. In fact, in this study, when they stopped taking the semaglutide, they still had a significant amount of weight loss, 10.3% of their body weight. Now, that's obviously great, but when you stop taking semaglutide, you're going to start gaining some weight back, and on average, these people gained about half of the weight back over the course of the year. And this is something that is very important to understand because in order for you to lose weight and keep it off, you need to make sustainable lifestyle changes. You cannot expect to take a medication like Ozempic or Wegovy and lose all of your weight and then just maintain that forever without making any lifestyle changes whatsoever. No matter what you do, whether it's surgery, medication, diet, or exercise, you need to make sustainable lifestyle changes. And if you don't, you will gain the weight back. In fact, people who undergo bariatric surgery, which is one of the most effective ways to lose weight, oftentimes end up regaining some weight unless they make significant lifestyle changes. For example, if you decide to take Ozempic or Wegovy, you need to understand that you are only going to get the benefit of the medication for as long as you keep taking it. If you decide to stop taking it, then you're going to gain some weight back. It's not going to be 50% like this study showed, but you will probably gain back at least a portion of the weight that you lost while taking Ozempic. So now the question becomes, what actually works for long-term weight loss? Well, there are many studies out there which actually compare the effectiveness of different medications for long-term weight loss, and I'm going to review some of those studies with you today. For example, in 2022, the New England Journal of Medicine published this article. This study compared the effects of lorcaserin, phentermine, topiramate extended release, duloxetine, and placebo on weight loss over the course of 1 year. Now, the interesting thing is that while lorcaserin is the only medication in this list which works by targeting serotonin receptors in the brain to reduce appetite, the others work by completely different mechanisms. Phentermine is a stimulant, and so it gives you less appetite and increases your metabolism. Topiramate is an anti-seizure medication. It's not FDA approved for weight loss, but it can cause weight loss as a side effect. And then finally, duloxetine is an antidepressant. It's also not FDA approved for weight loss, but it has been shown to cause weight loss in some studies. But what is interesting here is that they found that lorcaserin was no better for weight loss than placebo, whereas phentermine, topiramate, and duloxetine were significantly better than placebo. In fact, the average weight loss in the phentermine group was 10.4 pounds over the course of the year, 8.7 pounds in the topiramate group, and 8.2 pounds in the duloxetine group, whereas the average weight loss in the lorcaserin group was only 1.3 pounds. However, we need to take these results with a grain of salt because once again, this study was conducted by a pharmaceutical company, which is trying to push their own medication. But what I think this study shows us is that medications that increase satiety alone are not as effective for long-term weight loss as medications that decrease appetite or increase metabolism. Another study, which was published in 2022, compared the effects of tirzepatide versus placebo on weight loss over the course of 72 weeks. And tirzepatide is another medication which targets serotonin receptors in the brain to reduce appetite. This study showed that the average weight loss in the tirzepatide group was 21.3 pounds versus 4.4 pounds in the placebo group. So definitely a big difference, but it is not that impressive considering that the average starting weight of the participants in this study was only 200 pounds. So 21.3 pounds is 10.6% of their body weight. And when you remember that these participants had an average starting weight of 200 pounds, you realize that they were not that overweight. On the other hand, people who undergo bariatric surgery lose way more weight, in some cases up to 100 pounds, and in many cases, they are able to keep that weight off for many years. Why? Well, because bariatric surgery is not just a medical intervention, it's a surgical intervention, and this forces people to change their eating habits because you simply can't eat as much food as you used to after bariatric surgery. And that's why bariatric surgery is one of the most effective treatments for obesity, especially long-term. The bottom line is that you can't expect to take a pill or receive an injection once a week and lose tons of weight, especially long-term. If you want to lose weight long-term, you need to make sustainable lifestyle changes. And yes, you can use tools such as Ozempic or Wegovy to help you reach your goals faster, and then eventually you can come off of them as long as you maintain the lifestyle changes that you made while you were taking Ozempic or Wegovy. So what are some of those lifestyle changes? Well, first and foremost, you need to start eating fewer calories, and in order to do that, you need to reduce the amount of food that you eat at each meal, and you also need to reduce the number of times per day that you eat. And when you combine reduced meal frequency with intermittent fasting, you can experience something called the fasting effect. The fasting effect is when you fast for a certain period of time and then you break your fast. And when you do that, you stimulate something called TOR. And TOR is like a cellular repairman, and this helps your cells repair themselves, especially at the mitochondrial level, and the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So anytime you can improve your mitochondria, you're going to improve your health. In addition to that, when you combine reduced meal frequency with intermittent fasting, you also stimulate something called autophagy, and autophagy is basically the recycling of old proteins and other cellular debris. So whenever you combine reduced meal frequency with intermittent fasting, you're going to improve your cellular repair and your cellular cleanup. And this is going to help you heal from things like injuries faster, and you are also going to improve your overall health. Another very important part of weight loss is strength training. Many people, when they're trying to lose weight, they're doing cardio, but they're not doing strength training. And that's a big mistake because muscle mass is metabolically active. So if you add muscle mass, you are going to improve your resting metabolism. Finally, sleep is another very important factor when it comes to weight loss. In fact, if you're not sleeping well, you are more likely to experience an increase in your appetite and cravings. And this is due to increased levels of ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and decreased levels of leptin, which is the satiety hormone. Now, if you'd like to learn more about exactly how to implement all of these principles into your life, if you'd like to know what supplements I recommend to burn fat, go ahead and tap on this video on the screen. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.